Yo, what up? It's Doenut, and you tuning into Illuminati news. We're here with Paranoid American down below.
Yo, what up? What up, Doenut?
Make sure to smash that like button as you enter the room. We got big things happening in America right now. Today's video, live stream, chat before the election, we got the last president, the Omega rituals of the 2024 elect. We're going to go over all of this. As the reason I titled it this is because I think this is the great reset of the financial system. If you look at the dollar bill, I like to look at symbols. As you can see, there's like a little hidden owl in the corner, but you got the first president, the alpha, in the Omega logo, the alpha in the Omega. And Omega is the last. And there's a book called The Last President, which is about a guy named Trump being the last president. And we all know the alpha and the Omega. It goes into religion. It's the alpha and the Omega. And it's just weird that Trump lives in a big Omega, you know. He lives in a giant Omega Mar-a-Lago. So yeah, we about to get into it. What are you looking at? This is also Elon. He just was on Joe Rogan, so I put the satellite on there because he says that he works for Starlink, and Starlink is a weapons program because of the lasers, which is interesting.
Well, shout out 1896, Ingersoll Lockwood, the author of The Last President, which is wild. I've also heard interpretations of this, that the previous presidency, when Trump won, that was him being the last president, because every president since then, which I guess would be two already, right? We already got Biden and Kamala Harris, but that neither of them were real presidents because they're sort of amalgamations. Like they're just kind of like a thinly veiled puppet on top of the hands.
Yeah, I did a full-on documentary about this, going into all the different topics of time travel with Donald Trump, his MIT deep state uncle, John Trump, as well, getting all of Tesla's information. And Tesla was working on time travel, supposedly. Have you looked into this deeply, this last president?
I've looked into that actual aspect too of the John F. Trump and the Tesla connection, because I wrote a comic book, Time Samplers issue 5 was exclusively on this. I got these characters, they go back to that exact moment right before Tesla dies and he's living in the hotel, and they snatch him out. But one of the coolest theories on that particular subject is that the hotel he was working in, he was turning the entire hotel into a massive antenna. And that he was actually using this in order to generate energy sort of off the grid, because he had made enemies with GE and all the other electricity providers, essentially. And he was kind of left out on his own because his last remaining financier died on the Titanic, Jacob Astor. And with Astor out of the picture, now all of a sudden Tesla had no more real backing except for whatever secret projects that he had already kind of had working in the mix. And there was another funny observation that Tesla apparently stopped talking to people, or he became a complete misanthrope in a way, but he was always talking to his pigeons, and they could always see him on the top of the building with the pigeons. He had pigeons in his room. Another cool theory is that these could have been carrier pigeons, and that he was using the pigeons to send messages in the most secure way possible, because even then telephones could easily be tapped. So there's so many weird, interesting aspects of like futuristic thinking of Tesla, the last president, 1896 even. It seems like we're caught in sort of a feedback loop.
Right. And so that's nuts. And so that was in your comic book, and me and you are working on a comic book. We've been working on it for over a year now. Here's a cool little slide.
Yo, what up, Illuminati comic?
Illuminati comic. Make sure to go to Illuminati comic. This is going to be launched on 11/11. What up, three eyes up in here? We're dropping the Illuminati comic. We've worked so hard on it. Paranoid worked very, very hard on it. As like just so. I mean, the dude.
Well, we were talking earlier this week, and like this had to happen. Like it was a compulsion for this Illuminati comic to exist to begin with, because it's something that I've looked for. Like I've tried to find a really good comprehensive version of, okay, what exactly is Illuminati? When were they founded? Who founded it? How did they fall? Why did they fall? What happened to them after they fell? All those questions there for yourself. And I suggest you do, but you're going to end up reading 6 or 7, at the very minimum, 6 or 7 of like the heavy hitter books. Each of those books are like 400 to 700 pages. So we're talking tens of thousands of pages just in order to put together a complete picture of what I would argue is one of the most important topics that people should understand. And it's not just the group itself and not just the people, but the formula they created. Like they created the original algorithm that would decide what society finds interesting and what gets propagated. This is that entire formula put together in the late 1700s. And ever since then, every other group and secret society, they've just been refining this and tweaking it to cater more to whatever their needs are. But if you understand how the original Illuminati got put together, now all of a sudden you're going to be leagues ahead, and you're going to have the dates, the names, the facts, the sources, everything to back it up.
So everybody, click the link and go to the notify me on launch, because we're going to launch this comic on 11/11. We already got 450 people up on here. Make sure to go there, because we're going to be giving goodies. You're going to get the VHS box, all the different rewards, and you first come, first serve, and all that, So make sure to go there, so when we launch it, we can get into that algorithm and you can get all that stuff. So I'm very excited to drop that. Somebody brought up the nuts. I think maybe we should talk a little bit about the nuts, unless there's anything we should talk about before we move on.
R.I.P. Peanut.
Okay, yeah, R.I.P. Peanut. I've been looking deeply in this. I even dropped the video today. I don't usually drop edited videos, but this is meme magic happening on the world stage, and it's just something that must be brought up. And I just see a ton of symbolism in it. The damn squirrel, the squirrel gets the nuts. This happened on No Nut November. They sacrificed the squirrel on So Win. And the dude is an OnlyFans model. He has the Illuminati eye tattoo on him. But these memes are used as magic. It's meme magic happening on the world stage. And rest in peace, Peanut. Absolutely awful what happened. I feel super bad for the dude. And I don't think the dude knows about the rituals that are going on, but these rituals are definitely going on.
And it's kind of fitting too, because the symbolism of the squirrel in general, in almost any culture, but the symbolism represents the need for play and work to coexist in the same system. Because everything a squirrel does is kind of like this fun, frivolous, even like, I'm sure the last moments, but the squirrels represents that sort of like free, lighthearted, playful attitude in everything that you do. One of my favorite examples is the Disney movie, I think Sword in the Stone. And one of the main scenes is when they both turn into squirrels. And he's kind of understanding that like you're always kind of in a playful mood, but that's your entire existence. So it's kind of wild that this squirrel symbolism becomes this, I guess, like a meme celebrity in his death. It almost seems that the squirrel transcended the mundane, earth, and now it's going to be this sort of like an infinite being that lives on through memes.
Yeah, I think it's way cooler than I think this Don't Tread on Me with the squirrel is way doper. For real.
And it honestly, it means pretty much the same exact thing, man. This is like a true upgrade of the original snake, right?
Right. It's the upgrade of the snake. And another interesting thing is this was a symbol for the Q people. They use this, but instead of a
Yeah,
squirrel,
the Gadsden flag. Anytime you go to like a range, you'll see this on damn near everybody's range bag.
the Q version of it.
Oh, what was the Q version? I've seen the Don't Step on Snack version.
So it was a sticker all over the place in Arizona. I'll just bring it up. It was one of their symbols. So, and I think that there's a connection to it. Oh, here it is. It's this one right here. I'm not sure if you've seen this one.
No, I haven't seen that one before.
Yeah. So, I mean, this was all over Arizona. So that was kind of used and then it kind of morphed. And so I don't know, just throwing, more stuff out there in the ethos of what's going on with this meme magic. But
I think memes are pretty much the new way that humans are going to communicate with each other, because, and not in a good or a bad way. I mean, my opinion aside, it just seems like objective truth, because these memes can travel across language barriers way quicker than having to translate things manually and lose things. You don't really lose as much information in a meme going across different cultures, age groups, class brackets, all of that, versus straight up English, right? Or converting it into written language. I think it kind of like surpasses that. And it's weird. And I guess in a bad way, maybe it's like hacking directly to our brains, the same way that growing up, when I was starting to learn how to read, I remember like getting over that initial hump. It were like these pictograph books where instead of writing out the word dog, it would have like a little picture of the word dogs. And then you're just learning all the small words in between, the thes, is, ands, you know what I mean? And then you start putting the actual nouns together. But now, like, even as I'm getting older, it's regressing to now it's like, in order to fit your message into the little spots and like one little text, now you're going back and replacing words with little tiny pictures again, which is like it's a weird regression, but it makes sense because you can send that across and it conveys the information so much better.
And I like to remind everybody, we just crashed through almost 1,000 people watching. We're streaming all over the place. Late night stream at 11:11. We're dropping the Illuminati comic on 11:11. Make sure to smash that like button. I remind everybody every time we pass through 1,000 people. And also, if you'd like to send in a super chat, the Venmo is right there in the corner, and we will read your super chat out loud. Another thing connecting it with the time travel is that this peanut is from Pine, and Pine City is connected to the time traveling mall, Pine Mall, Twin Pines Mall.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah. So I mean, right there with the words and etymology, we're coming up on the election, the selection, but L is the elite. That's why you have an L on. If Jordan Maxwell was around, that's probably what he would say. But with this time traveling peanut, or Donald Trump time traveling throughout the wormholes in movies like Donnie Darko, which there's so many similarities to Donald Darko, and Donald Trump. We'll play some clips of it. But Back to the Future, Biff is Donald Trump. They based it off of him. And here's the Twin Pines Mall, which is the Twin Peaks, or the AA, or the albino alligator, as Kim Kardashian just dressed up as. But the timestamp has the 611 in it, or 9/11 upside down. And Trump, he had the assassination attempt on his life at 611. He's known as the 911 guy in commercials, but even his Truth Social profile picture shows the 911. And what are just the odds of the symbolism of the 911 as we're coming up on a historic her story day? The elections, the selections.
My favorite answer to that question, even if it's rhetorical, my answer to like, what are the chances? 100%. Like, not what are the chances before it happens, but after you see that it does happen and these connections do exist, then of course, like, was it even a random event, or was that always going to happen all along, anyways, because there was 100% chance of it happening? And I'm kind of surprised you brought up the Back to the Future, Twin Pines mall and everything, because my good friend David Charles Plate, he I believe he helped work on this documentary. It's like a long 9-hour documentary. You can find a much shorter version of it, but it's called Sorry Cassandra, I Misunderstood. This is based on an ABBA song, but it's about this entire aspect of the Back to the Future series predicting 9/11. And it sounds so silly on its surface, but it is one of the deepest synchronistic rabbit holes I've ever come across. And I still don't know where I make heads or tails of it, because on one hand, yeah, it feels like it's just nonstop prophecy, but also I wonder, does the movie predict it? Did the director like know about it and then puts all this information in, or is it more that we're outside observers years later able to see these weird patterns in like the Matrix code? I think that's one of my more favorite takes on it, is that this synchronistic or like synchro mysticism isn't that someone necessarily is sitting down and creating this, but we get to collectively all be these, pattern matchers. And this is just one of these really odd patterns where how many coincidences does it take until you're like, okay, there's something to this. If two things happen that are related, you're like, okay, what a coincidence. But if it's like 7 or if it's 15, like at what point do you sit back and say, I think there's an actual pattern going on here? And the Back to the Future series in 9/11 is one of the best examples of that.
Yeah, and I guess you could still check it out right here. Sorry, Cassandra, Misunderstood Everything Predicts 9/11. And we'll definitely bring him on as we're doing these streams. Are we doing this every day?
Every day at 11 or 11 Eastern. We're going to do this for the next 5 weeks plus. Let's see.
Yeah, we're going to be streaming every day, pumping up the Illuminati comic. So make sure to go to the notify me on launch. So we're going to be live. We're going to be dropping all that. So make sure to go here to notify me on launch. When you click it, you put your email in and sign up. This is super important. Look, we already got 3 new people. Thank you so much. Let's get that to 500 before the show ends. For the Illuminati comic that we're dropping on 11/11 to pump y'all up for it. Yeah. And we got the election coming up tomorrow. I did a whole deep dive, and this is part of the Donald Trump documentary of him time traveling. But during the second election where Biden got in, I was so done with politics that I was like, I don't want to follow the crowd. And I just said, you know what I'm going to do is, while everyone's watching the elections, I was going to read the CIA gateway process documents of the people doing the time traveling, astro traveling.
Awesome. I love that idea of not just I'm gonna not pay attention to this thing, but I'm gonna because a vacuum needs to be filled, right? And this is like a good like a mental version of idle hands. So if you're going to ignore one thing that everyone else is focused on, try and take that same amount of focus and passion and point it at anything else. Like you could have said, underwater basket weaving or something. And as long as you would put the same attention and focus that you would have on the election, which would have been kind of a waste of time and just loose energy or given up, I think that anything replacing that would have been good. And I'm proud, man. That's awesome, because now you've got like the Cartesian coordinate system worked out as applied to like the mental realm, right?
Yeah, I'll bring it up. I'll download it real quick off of Dripbox.
Was that a free ad promo?
No, so Dropbox. Have you seen Silicon Valley?
I love Silicon Valley. One of my
remember when
shows.
He's pitching to the dude, and he's all like Dropbox, more like Dripbox, and then he just awkward laugh. We just, I was doing that in my head here. Let me CIA. Let me see if I.
They also had really good like Chinese versions of every single major intelligence company.
Oh. Nice. Here, I'm gonna upload the video. This is young Doenut, before the stresses of life.
You said young donut. I was imagining like a donut version of Carl Jung.
So this was that video talking about. That's the thumbnail. Let me play a little clip of it.
The gateway experience is a training system to alter consciousness, moving it outside the physical sphere, ultimately escape even the restrictions of time and space. We resemble a computer, or I should say actually a computer resembles us.
I don't even know what the heck I'm talking about there.
I mean, it's legit though, man. That is very much how computers were formed. It was based on our understanding and mapping. And I mean, until the internet came out for everybody, a lot of this information was strictly military, right? There was like a weird line between military intelligence and academia in general, like one of the biggest revolving doors, but it's not as salacious as like the pharmaceutical revolving door between government. But this meant that a lot of this information was kind of free at the upper levels of academia without needing necessarily top secret clearances, and they were all patterning how does the human brain work and then applying that to how a computer would work. So I wonder if there was ever like if we got steered in that direction, or if technology just automatically pushes you into the same way that everything else is constructed. But and this is kind of crazy you brought this up too. I'm not going to mention what it's about, but I had a couple threads this week hit pretty hard on Twitter, which is the only place that they would even have been allowed on X. But there was this whole comment thread that was talking about how the Monroe research into exactly what we were just talking about. This is sort of like a secular or a scientific way of applying the same thing that Golden Dawn was trying to put together. All this astral traveling and raising and lowering your consciousness. It kind of took the woo-woo out of that, and it just straight up said, if we treat this like a scientific process, if the military were to sit down and figure out exactly what the OTO or what the Golden Dawn or what Aleister Crowley is doing and all these different like Carlos Castaneda style motions, how can we drill that into just giving it to someone in a field manual? And that's kind of
so that's
exactly what you're reading.
Yeah. So that's exactly what it is. It was just like scientific stuff of what they were doing in these occult
circles. It would have been weird if you're like, all right, recruits, line up, and they start handing out OTO manuals and like Aleister Crowley book, like here's the Book of Law, here's Liber 777. So instead, this Monroe and all the other related kind of out of body experience research is this secular like commercial version of what a lot of these like secret mystery and reading clubs were doing in the 1800s. They kind of boil this down and turn it into an actual field manual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's wild stuff. It's crazy. So what's your thoughts on this whole squirrel thing right now?
I relate to it, man. I like the questions that it forces people to ask. One of them is like, oh, you care about this squirrel, but you don't care about the, and then fill in the blank, whatever the whataboutism like thing that you should care about instead. But no, this squirrel feels like one of those things that could be one of those straws on the back of the camel's back that is just like starts giving up at a certain point, because the squirrel represents this really strange abstract concept that the state can come in and do whatever the hell it wants at any point, even if it's something that doesn't seem like contraband, right? Like a squirrel that you're nursing and that is living a good life and it's a celebrity and it's raising money to basically provide for other animals. It's allowing a guy, even though it's this OnlyFans, whatever your idea is on, the morality of that, but he's not working at Dow Chemical. He's not putting together rocket parts to go into World War III, right? He's just got a social media account and a squirrel and a raccoon and a horse. And it's weird how this turns into
the horse, you're talking about his private parts.
Yeah. No, well, I don't know if you read, I know, I appreciate that. Yeah, his hog too, I guess I would have said. But one of the stories that came out was that when they came to take Peanut, it was like a 5-hour raid on the house. he wasn't allowed in the house, and he, because of Peanut's success, he was able to start an animal rescue. And through that animal rescue, he had a horse or a few horses he was taking care of. And he mentioned that horse didn't get to eat breakfast or lunch that day because he wasn't allowed to go anywhere. He had to just kind of like sit there as they went into the house and took Peanut, and they took the raccoon, and who knows what else. I feel that we're only getting the details in this one particular story, and it seems horrendous. But yeah, I mean, Peanut will live on. So Peanut didn't necessarily die in vain, but he represents all the other things that the state, I'm not going to just say the police in New York, the entire state, and any state you're in, right? The government could come in and make the rule up. They could just say, oh, we're looking for rabies now, so now you can't go in your house for 5 hours. This represents the most benign version of that, where a child, anyone on like the left or the right, if you're an anarchist, if you're a socialist, who out there is like, no, I wanted that squirrel to get taken out. Screw that squirrel. That almost feels like the ultimate litmus test. If there's any psychopaths or sociopaths listening, here's like a pro tip: like, the squirrel is always right. There's never a time in which a small animal is the villain in any of these cases, right? Even if it was a vector for rabies, which I don't think it's weird. They said that was the why they had to take them all out, is to check. But did they release the results? Because I feel now that's an important answer. Well, did they? And I'm pretty sure that the answer was no. The raccoon and the squirrel didn't.
Right. And when these stories get put on the world stage by the left and the right, where you got the 30-mile zone, which is TMZ. Not a lot of people know what TMZ stands for. It stands for the 30-mile zone.
The actual like paparazzi TMZ.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you got the leftist media covering it, and you got the mainstream media on the right covering it. It's a mainstream coverage of this. And once mainstream coverage covers stuff, they want you to know it. Like, have you seen this girl in Iran who got naked?
Yeah, this is a wild one because I've heard all different stories. Like, oh, she's not with us anymore, and then people are like, yeah, she is, but she went to a mental hospital. And then someone's like, no, she never went to a mental hospital. It's all kind of like I was saying before. Emojis and memes become this new wave of communication, right? And you lose all that nuance, though. This is one of those downsides: is that everyone shares the clip of the event happening, and very rarely do you know the outside context. On quick tangent, but one of my favorite examples of this one is, most people remember the "Do Not Tase Me, Bro" guy, right? Does everyone? I mean, this is like 10 years ago at least, but this is "Don't Tase Me, Bro" was one of the very first memes that went incredibly viral all over the world. Do you remember what he got tased for? Like, do you remember the context outside of just "Don't Tase Me, Bro"?
I don't even remember this, but tell us.
So "Don't Tase Me, Bro." This guy was at I believe this was the Bush-Kerry election, and he was asking John Kerry, presidential candidate, about his role in Skull and Bones.
Oh,
and
really?
Yeah, in a huge public forum, huge room full of people, nationally televised, everything. He stands up, the balls on this guy, the nuts on this guy, but he asks, hey, should we be concerned about your role in the Skull and Bones secret society, and you're running for president? And immediately you see security like starting to come on him, and people are like yelling and booing. And John Kerry actually says, no, let him ask the question, let him answer the question. I think that was just a cover. I think that everyone had scripted questions that day, and if you didn't ask the question you said you were going to ask when they gave you the mic, it kind of shut down the whole facade. And that's what happened here. But the more important thing is that the media hyper focused on this guy going, don't tase me, bro, don't tase me. And then he gets tased and he's like wriggling around on the ground. And that little clip turns that whole thing into a joke. And no one remembers. Yeah, let's see it.
Sorry about that. Continue.
Well, and no one remembers like what the context of the clip was. They just remember this dude getting tased.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's kind of how they covered it up. He was questioning his affiliations to these secret societies.
And I think it's kind of genius, because the alternative is they've got this guy on national TV, right? And they've got a room full of people. They know that he asked this question, and they know he got taken out for asking this question. So if you bury this and it comes out naturally through like the social media or anything other than mainstream, then it's going to come along with the context. The headline could have been "Guy gets tased for asking Carrie about Skull and Bones." That would have reworked that entire dynamic of this event. But instead, I think the media is smart enough now to say, no, let's lean into this. Let's make the spectacle of him getting tased and the commotion. Let's make the commotion the news story, and that way it's way more salacious than all of the context around it. So this meme is an example of, like, to me, it convey all this information. If I hear someone say, "Don't tase me, bro," now all of a sudden I'm conjuring all like, oh, Skull and Bones, Carrie, the way the media manipulates. So for me, this meme is incredibly potent. It has all this embedded info in it. But to the rest of the masses, I guess, like the exoteric appearance, it's like, haha, watch this guy get tased. I bet he said something stupid. I wonder what dumb thing he said
It's
to get
just
him in
like
that position.
the movie Sin City, where Bruce Willis is like fighting the like people doing the terrible stuff, but they arrest him and kill him, but he saves the girl, but then all the news is saying that he's the one who did all the terrible stuff.
Yeah, you lean into it because everyone's going to be talking about it anyway. So this gives you a chance to shape that narrative. And I mean, to me, this is one of the most important moments in my lifetime of media coverage, was that "Don't tase me, bro" guy.
I'm gonna play a clip. I want to hear what he says, because I I must have been really drunk at this time. I wasn't sober probably, so I didn't even know this happened. Let me play a clip.
Be a Peach Bush, all right? Also, were you a member of Skull and Bones in college and Bush? Were you in the same secret society?
That's all right. Let me answer his question.
Excuse me, whoa!
That's kind of terrifying if you think about it.
I mean, that's not nothing to get up in front of, this audience and ask a presidential candidate about his Skull and Bones membership. A question, by the way, that they're supposed to be required to stand up and leave the room if anyone even mentions Skull and Bones in their presence. I think this is somewhat similar to Bohemian Grove, although when you're a presidential candidate and you're in a room full of people, you can't, like, the last thing you could do is someone asks you about Skull and Bones, you just get up and leave. That would have been wild. So I almost feel that, and you can see immediately when he asked that question, all the cops kind of feel like it's almost like they all got a little message. It was like, beep, beep, okay, move in, because they just start swarming them. And then you hear John Kerry kind of protesting in the background. But I feel that protest is just for show. Like, he knows that this guy asking about Skull and Bones is off the table, and that the only outcome now is that they're going to take him out and make an example of him. And they did. And
they also, like, John Kerry, he just came out talking about how the First Amendment's awful and we need to regulate it. And it's crazy. And there's that other guy that asked him about it. But yeah, I've covered Skull and Bones quite a bit. Even the squirrel, Peanut, his name equals 322 backwards. And look at this picture. There's donuts in it. But he's got the eyeball. Here's some symbolism. I've looked. Do you know who this is? I look at the hourglass of time right there. I think everything's connected to these time rituals. I'm not sure if you saw my video I put out, but I was connecting the time rituals to Biden, where Biden was being Father Time. He was being Saturn, biting the babies right here. And the guy just had a bunch of time.
I think that was genius, by the way. I think 100% the Biden biting babies, the new Build Back Better slogan, but that representing old man time, Kronos devouring these children in order to stay in power because he's old and the new wave is about to come in. It's so the symbolism on here is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is, though. Like, it's Kronos. So this isn't popular, but the real ones like you, No, yes, like that. He's wearing the whole black suit as well. So it's Halloween and he's dressed up in all the black because that's the Saturn robe. The
And
black
she's
robe.
even dressed. She even looks like a butcher, right? Or at least like a fast food worker.
Yeah. Yeah. She looks that
Like,
that
sir, your order's ready. And he's like just checking to see if yeah, even the
thank you.
pose, everything, man.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, so that's totally what it is. And what I think's happening is I think there's going to be a ritual for the full moon. So we just had a new moon, and the way astrology works is the new moon in Scorpio. Biden is a Scorpion, a Scorpio. The new moon, you set your intentions, and then on the full moon on November 15th is when you manifest like whatever you set. So it's all connected through the ritual. And these people be sacrificed a day before or after the full moon. So I'm thinking November 17th in leap year, it's 322. Speaking of skull and bones, it's usually November 18th, as you know, the Illuminati founder. He died on November 18th. But Biden, his Build Back Better speech, the Biden babies on so when he was doing that, when he was biting the babies, this is when Peanut was kidnapped, right? On October 30th. And then on October 31st at nighttime, it would become Samhain or Halloween for November 1st. And November 1st, they murdered the peanut and the raccoon. And I see all this time symbolism, but the Build Back Better speech that Biden did on October 1st, a few years ago, where he said 6 minutes, 6 days, and 6 weeks. So it was known as the 666 speech, which is kind of where that Build Back Better 666 started to come into place. 6 weeks and 6 days from October 1st, coincidentally, lands on November 18th, the 322 day of the year. So I'm looking out for the completion of this ritual on November 17th. This is when young Dolph died, who released the Illuminati paper route. 3-6 Mafia, a lot of people in that group as well died. And maybe this is the jelly roll ritual. I don't know. We'll see.
You asked the question before too. Do you know who this is? I don't know if do you ever figure out exactly who the person in the tattoo was, because the form is very specific. It's a cariated, which are those people that they turn into pillars. And there's a whole rabbit hole that I won't even go down here. But there's something referred to as a human pillar, which is exactly what this is. But a human pillar is another type of secret society ritual. But anyways, this in particular one, this I think goes back to some of the oldest symbolism that was getting baked into architecture. Like this is pre-European masonry, but this is where Freemasons kind of get their inspiration, was this type of detail, like so ornate. This is beyond any of the original Doric and Ionic and like Corinthian style pillars. This is well into composite, I believe. And this is when people were literally carving their information into stone, and that this is the clear representation of that. This cariated.
It's all about them pillars for sure, and the Saturnian age as well. The federal edifice had the two pillars collapsing that Jordan Maxwell used to show off. I don't know if you ever seen the federal edifice.
I'm sure I've seen it at some point. If it was a Jordan Maxwell, if we're talking about Jordan Maxwell talk.
Yeah, the federal edifice right here. So here's the pillars, right? The 11th pillar. Now this came out in the 1700s, 1789, August 2nd, and it shows the two pillars collapsing, right? Looking like the two towers. And at the top it says the Saturnia Regina or whatever. So it all goes into Saturn type stuff for the Saturnian age. And it's
Those towers fallen and the broken pillars are incredibly important symbolism, because when you see not just a broken tower, which kind of reminds me of the Crowley Thoth tarot deck, but a broken pillar specifically, it's a reference that the work is never done. This is a message to anyone that sees it, to have like those eyes to see. It's letting you know that here's an ongoing work that's going to outlast our lifetimes, likely, whenever you see that broken pillar symbolism.
Oh, okay. So the broken pillar symbolism is sort of ancient.
Incredibly ancient, way beyond any modern secret society. But if you look at Freemason broken pillar symbolism, this is usually what they'll show in eulogies, or when someone passes. There's like a very specific scene with a pillar and a goddess and like masonry tools off on the side, but it represents the human life, that even if you live, birth to death and do everything that you set out to do, which is already kind of like an impossible task, but that still your work would never be done. Like, it's an ongoing thing. Like, just because your lifetime is over doesn't end all the things that you were working towards, so that each individual person is also their own broken pillar in this way.
Yeah, Jordan Maxwell went so hard. What else? Well, let me see what other symbols I got. I got a ton of symbols, but his OnlyFans, this is why I was connecting it to the kinky sex magic rituals of the elections, because of Jordan Maxwell's breakdowns of this. So this isn't like me being like perverted or crazy or whatever. Like,
this is Jordan Maxwell being perverted and crazy.
Yeah, that's Jordan Maxwell being
Write him a
perverted
letter.
and crazy. Let me see if I could pull that up real quick.
This is interesting to me too now, especially this OnlyFans angle, because if you were to take a whole bunch of steps back and look at this from an outside observer, like you go and talk to your parents or your like your older family member at Thanksgiving, and everyone's like, what was it about that squirrel? You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people probably don't realize this like OnlyFans aspect to it. But you're going to have people that are pro First Amendment, pro Second Amendment, anti, state endorsed violence, all these people rallying around this squirrel meme and the squirrel symbolism, while politically you're like, why are all of these conservatives backing some male star on OnlyFans? This seems like an unlikely combination. So I guess understand all the moving mechanics here, because again, the squirrel meme has the potential to embed all this information in it. To anyone that has no idea what's going on, they just see some guy with a squirrel and they're like, okay, I don't get it. But now it's like, me and you look at this and state violence comes into mind, left and right politics, the fact that people make more money on OnlyFans than they do doing other legitimate work out in the world. Like, all this is now encoded into this damn peanut squirrel.
Oh yeah, and like the dude's always like showing off his nuts, and it just goes into the sex magic of the Olympics. Right here is a Guy Fawkes Day, which is also tomorrow, which they burn an effigy. They sacrifice this effigy of Guy Fawkes.
Shout
November
out Cremation of Care.
Is this where the Cremation of Care stems from, you think?
Well, Cremation of Care is, I think, kind of like Alex Jones says, but it's just this Molk ritual that eventually gets attributed to Moloch in the Bible. But really, it's these three, if you try to just pronounce the three letters MLK together, which is its own rabbit hole. Why is it MLK? But MLK, Molk, represents a sacrifice that you would give to the gods in exchange for this as above, so below sympathetic magic. And the Cremation of Care ritual in particular is just a much more modernized 1800s version of this. And it's literally they name the effigy that they burn Care. And Care is not only a person that's there to basically sneak in and expose all the secrets of Bohemian Grove and gets caught, and that's why they burn her. But Care also represents the literal cares that they feel that they're carrying on their shoulders. Also carry, like they're carrying it on the shoulders, because it's all of the elites. It's all the actual modern day Illuminati. It's the people that feel that they run the industries, the financial sectors, the media, like all the ones that are behind deciding, Peanut is going to get the star front and developing these memes. And they go to these retreats and they're like, oh, woe is me. Look at all of these trials and tribulations I'm going through with all this power on my hands. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. So when they set fire to this care effigy, they're supposed to be kind of like vicariously just eliminating all their stress. Like they're watching their stress and their cares burn up in front of them. So that's kind of the same exact premise, that every single effigy in any ritual, it represents this release, so that this fire burning in front of you lets the fire inside of you burn as well. And you don't, like, you can kind of do it on a repeated basis versus trying to provide like this whole experience just on your own, because it's also a group social setting.
It's like a cathartic experience. And shout out to Prison
Yeah, best word
Palace.
to use it is, it's a catharsis. Absolutely.
And that's all like the election is they gave people Trump the first round for a cathartic experience, and then they gave the left Biden.
You said it, man. It's a selection, or I mean election.
It's just a selection election for sure. That's what it seems like. That's what Jordan Maxwell said too. Like, so
I know this is like the closest we'll be, because tomorrow, or technically today, right, in 1 minute Eastern, it'll be election day. But yeah, I've kind of, not in a black pill way, but I really do feel that the elections now, it's a temperature check. It's a poll. Like, everyone is concerned about the presidential polls as if the polls are going to tell you how the election outcome happens, which isn't really how it works, right? There's plenty of times everyone's like, oh, the polls were wrong. But the election itself, the actual announcement of here's who won, I also see that as a poll. And it's just like, will they revolt this time? Oh, they didn't revolt? Okay, here's your new president. Welcome, Mr. President. That's kind of, or Mrs. President in this case.
RFK says first day he's going to remove fluoride out of the water. So maybe once that's removed, then people will start to revolt.
That's some dangerous talk, man.
That's some dangerous talk, bro. Yeah, because
Kennedy came out and said, I'm going to abolish this aspect of the government, it never goes well for them.
No, yeah. See, more people are worried about Trump. I think RFK is in much more danger because he's talking crap about people who actually control the world, which is the big pharma. I don't even want to get too much into that, but like it goes deep.
We'll do that on the After Hours show. That's on limited networks.
And we almost passed it through over 2,000 people watching live or streaming all over on Paranoid's platform, X, Rumble, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Make sure to smash that like button, share this video out. Let's get this up to 3,000 people live. I'd like to remind y'all every time we crush through 1,000 people. And we are doing streams all the time now because we got a big project about to drop. It's called The Illuminati Comic. I know you want it. The Illuminati Comic. You got to go click the link below. I got it pinned. Let's try to get 500 signups. We only got one sign up. Come on. We're trying to get the 500 signups. You go to notify me on launch and sign up, because when we drop this Illuminati comic on 11/11, y'all are gonna want to grab it quickly, because I'm gonna be dropping the VHS box, the Doenut VHS box, which I drop every year. Up on there, you get the comic, you get all the good stuff.
Well, and just the shortest, quickest example of this, but just look at those images at the top. We got some previews here, but one of them is breaking down how the Illuminati use secret hands symbols and these secret handshakes. Have you ever looked at like Texmar's Codex Magica or any of these images of the different politicians shaking hands in public? You can notice, look at where the thumb is resting on the knuckle, and depending on where the thumb hits which knuckle implies what degree you're in within this these degrees in the Bavarian Illuminati. And on the right, we got this guy that went through an actual Bavarian Illuminati initiation ritual, and you can see he's got a certain kind of hat on, and he's got a shield, and he's got certain types of shoes on his feet. And we break down exactly what all those specific symbols are. And this isn't, and you got it, of course. Everyone needs to have a copy of Codex Magica. This is like one of the most OG.
One of the OG ones, yeah. I mean, the guy's like biased religiously, but besides that, it's good.
Well, I mean, the same thing with the Illuminati comic format. I got an example here. This was the Homunculus Owner's Manual, but this format right here is based on Jack Chick comic books. They were called Chick Tracks, which was also like a very heavy religious leaning, but the format was amazing. Just like Codex Magica, the format that he presented it in, this was one of the first Twitter threads or like online thread, but he printed it in a book, right? But he would go on the internet and find all these examples and be like, hey, look at these 20 patterns. Look at all these celebrities and politicians all like wearing the same clothes or taking the same poses or shaking hands in the same ways, and compiled that in this long thread. Tex Mars was way ahead of his time. Like, I could only imagine a Tex Mars in 2024 at his peak right now with all the resources at his disposal.
He'd be freaking out. And that's
He'd
the
be
other
banned
thing.
on every platform by far.
Oh, well, I got a clip of Jordan Maxwell 20 years prior to today talking about 20 years from it's like a 20-year kind of gap thing. I'm gonna play it real quick. Wait, is there no audio?
I don't hear audio.
I didn't record the audio. Never mind. But he was just saying in 20 years from now, this was in 2003. He's like, you're not going to recognize the world. There's going to be division and like pretty much everything that's happening.
I agree with that. I mean, it seems obvious, and a lot of people have like had this claim, but that every 50 years, everything is unrecognizable. Even if you were to take the most conservative faction of religion or politics, but like even a conservative faction, and then show them a version of what they're doing from 50 years ago, or even more extreme, if you had a way to do time travel and you went back 50 years and you talked to conservative group of politics, religion, and said, hey, here's what we're doing in 2024. What do you think about this? Everyone will be like pearl clutching immediately, because there's so many things that change over the course of essentially 2 generations, right? Generation is like 30 years. So within the span of just 2 generations, things can completely invert and it seems normal. It's not that difficult if you're planning ahead. If you can plan ahead to do something over the course of 50 years because you got a generation to worry about, or a dynasty, like a Trump or a Kennedy dynasty, right? You can afford to play at these much higher levels.
Yeah, and that's how the Illuminati plan stuff out, is that they plan stuff out through centuries. We're like Dora, right? Squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. Or Dory, not Dora, Dory from Finding Nemo, where we're just like a squirrel, and that this is like about a squirrel, the like story, ironically. But things are planned out through generations, through century-long goals. So whatever was planned, like it's interesting that Elon, his propaganda is like solid right now for the right. Like everything he's doing the free speech. He's doing all these things that is just like, wow, you know? And just during the lockdown, it was like the total opposite, where he was going on SNL, just like Kamala was just on SNL. And he was on SNL doing like the hand symbols, and Grimes, his girlfriend, was hospitalized when they were there, which was interesting. It's strange because he becomes the dark Maga. And we were talking about the occult. The occult world in politics is ran through theosophy. The United Nations, they got a theosophy connection there. This is how the world actually operates, is through magic. So meme magic is on the world stage. The esoteric Nazis, they were all up into the occult. There's just mad occult stuff and magic and witchcraft playing. And Trump, this is mainstream news, that witches cannot curse him right now.
What?
Yeah, so this is ABC right here. Self-proclaimed witches say spells won't work against Trump because he's got a force field of protection around him from the dark Maga. which is Elon, who has these affiliations with Grimes. You know, they all know about magic. Elon's got a damn Vril staff, like that he be tweeting, he be showing that Vril staff off. And he's protecting Trump right now from these witches. And that's absolutely what's going on. Like,
I'm sure you've mentioned this plenty of times before too, but perfect time to bring it back up that even the word Maga in Italian means witch. Like it's an actual word for witch. And then recently, and I know this is old information because it's like thousands of years ago, but that one of the Egyptian gods, I guess, also name was Maga, which is somehow related to Sobek, which protects the underworld. That was a new one for me.
oh, well, I got another new one for you too, but you probably
me.
already know about it. But there is also an ancient god, Peanut. Or nut.
I didn't know this. What?
It's not technically Peanut,
Okay,
but
just
it's
nut.
the goddess Nut. I wonder if Peanut was a girl or a boy. Because there's the
Yeah, I
goddess
assume a
Nut.
boy, but who knows, right?
Yeah, I didn't want to assume the squirrel's gender. But there's this, yeah, it all goes back to these ancient symbols, like the Eye of Horus, the horizon. It's crazy. And
Peanut
Elon,
was a boy. Just for the record, Peanut was a boy,
okay.
or at least that's what his autopsy showed. We don't know what the social construct he identified with, though.
Yeah, that's an absolutely October surprise. So Elon, what's happening through this long programming is Elon. Remember when this happened? All the like old people were so pissed off. They're like, "This is so irresponsible of him." Donald Trump's so irresponsible tweeting these things about Kim Jong-un, calling him little rocket man. like older generations like freaked out because like this new generation is just like shook everything up. And like he's smoking weed here. And this is the Joe Rogan podcast, which promotes drugs.
Smoking is a strong word. Not to get on a tangent, but like if you see the way that smoke comes out of his mouth and the blunt, the joint that he was given, like all that should have been in his lungs, but it's not. So this is like a fake. That was like a fake hit. You know what I mean? This is like the undercover cop being forced to like do something in the warehouse, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm totally smoking."
It looks like that, yeah. Yeah, for real. No, I'm cool, dude. I'm cool.
I'm cool. And they're just like, inhaling into the mouth and blowing it directly back out without actually inhaling any of it.
That's exactly what it is. And so, like, where I stand with what's going on with Joe Rogan and the world stage is that they're resetting the autonomic nervous system through the Robert Gordon Wasson, JP Morgan propagandist. For the aliens.
Wait, what? Yeah, let's do this, man. This is absolutely one of my favorite topics is Robert Gordon Wasson. I've done crazy amounts of research into this guy's entire trajectory. Okay. And without going on another tangent, I came across Wasson's name in the mid-90s because I was doing research on this stuff that was being sold as incense in a local head shop. I won't even go into what it was, but I ended up finding out what was in that quote-unquote incense, and it was something that this Robert Gordon Wasson guy found, and it blew my mind out of orbit in the early 2000s or maybe in like the late 2000s that when I was doing not just magic mushroom research, but skull and bones research and Century Club research and JFK assassination research, and this Wasson guy kept coming up. And at some point, I realized this was the exact same dude that I had read about in the early 1990s on some Aroid forum, like the exact same Wasson. I can't, like, this guy is such a linchpin in the development over mainstream culture and society, and just like all of our brains, how our brains work right now in 2024 has so much to do with what Gordon Wasson and JP Morgan and the Century Club decided they wanted the brains to do in 2024.
Yeah, bankers, CIA, all of that. They were pushing this through the Life magazine. So where my hypothesis is with Tucker Carlson getting back massages by demons, promoting the alien agenda for a while, it's all connected to this Rockefeller Clinton connection of this new mythos of the alien. So we're getting hit with trauma 24/7. So looshing of different cultures will happen to each culture will get loosed, or an entire culture like a lockdown where people get hit with fear, 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 and they usually would turn to God, religion, faith, surrendering. But people are pretty sick of religion. At least Thomas Paine, he thought that everyone would, and this is a founding father, that people would have like became just done with religion. I don't know.
Yeah,
If
a lot
you,
of them were deists as opposed to subscribing to one particular religion. It was more of like, I believe in a higher power, full stop.
Oh, okay, yeah. So they believed in God, and so what's happening now, what I think's happening is that people, they're mad at religion, but also they also go towards religion. So whenever all this trauma happens, they give us this new mythos of the AA, of the ancient aliens. They tell us there's an alien on the plane on AA Airlines, American Airlines, on National UFO Day on 7/2. Then they tell us that there's Nephilim aliens at the mall. Then they say there's Mexican aliens at Congress or whatever. And they just keep giving us these stories, and it's an escape from this shitty uh, social media news cycle, loneliness epidemic, depression off the charts, drug addiction off the charts. That once they bring up the aliens, and it's nudging, it's very little. If you look at Joe Rogan's set where he's talking, there's a UFO like right there on the stage with him. So and he's telling everybody to take these drugs, these Timothy Leary drugs, and maybe they know something more so than I do. But what I think they're doing is they're resetting the autonomic nervous system, getting everybody put into the Eleusinian mysteries. And my audience is probably sick of me talking about it.
I'll never be sick of talking about Eleusinian mysteries. This is what I believe is the source of all religion, all politics, all secret societies to this day kind of stems from this exact premise. And I guess to get to the end in like the shortest amount of time, just imagine an ancient Greek, because the Greeks were the masters of theater, right? Like they were the best to ever do it. And a lot of people will claim that if you went and saw an actual Greek play in their time, it would rival any Hollywood blockbuster with surround sound and 5D seats and all of that, because they literally created the entire art form of putting on these plays. And what a Eleusinian mystery was, it was that you would fast for days, journeys, and eventually wind up in a huge underground cavern, and it would turn into a freaking Pink Floyd laser light show, like colors and sounds and smells and tastes you've never experienced before. You could be just a normal Joe Schmo poor person and look to your left and right and see kings and potentates and like huge leaders. But the other thing too that I think that makes more sense with the Eleusinian mysteries, you were only supposed to go one time in your life. It was supposed to be this incredible, monumental, life-changing thing that would make you realize, oh my God, I'm the same as kings. And, like it gave you this entirely different perspective that you would never come across on your own spontaneously, unless you were like one of these select few sort of like philosophical masters, like an ascended master. But you're supposed to do it one time and never again and never talk about it. But now, people be doing the Eleusinian mysteries like 4 or 5 times a day on their own. So it's the same premise, but it's removed all the sacredness of it. And it's kind of that typical template where you take something sacred and commercialize it. I mean, a good example would be like tobacco, right? Tobacco was this sacred herb that was used for all sorts of prophecy and peacemaking, and now it's just like that thing you're trying to quit doing, right? It's like that nasty habit that you're trying to kick. But this is something that's just kind of been like made profane, the same way that, I mean, you were in Vegas. One of my other favorite analogies on this is that every single game in Vegas, roulette, cards, all of that, these were all sacred tales used by sort of the equivalent of shamans and future tellers, right? Like the poker game that people are now losing money over and getting addicted to based on tarot cards, a prophecy. The roulette table, this was based again on like a more esoteric Wheel of Fortune aspect, but they just turn it into these commercialized commodities that become vices. So like, what is more of an inversion example of taking something that's supposed to be sacred and making it a vice that people actually have to go to therapy to get off of? Like, imagine people trying to get off of, you know, the prophecy at Delphi. Like the lady sitting up on the big chair inhaling the sulfur fumes is like, I got to kick this habit. But she served a real role in society. That doesn't exist anymore. We removed the sacred important part and we just keep the inebriation part.
Yes, and that's the same thing that happened with the secret garden with the Hashashins and the Assassin Order. It was a one-time only deal where you got all these drugs and women. Then you see this guy's head buried in the sand as if his head was chopped off. So they thought he like rose from the dead. And then he told them, you know, you're pretty much in our cult now. And the Illuminati, I always look at this up here, kind of connected to the mysteries. I'm not sure if it is or not, but here's Adam Weishaupt, and right here he's got this symbol, which it could be anything, but it kind of reminds me of the Eleusinian mysteries right here. And this was the barley or the wheat that is where they got the idea to make LSD. For the hippie movement and the MK Ultra mind control. And the MK Ultra mind control is connected to Gordon Wasson, right? Gordon Wasson worked with CIA, and this was all about the drugs. And this was
He went deep on that. And actually, in the Eleusinian mysteries, they use something called Kykeon, Kykeon, and Kykeon. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And that they're still kind of unsure of exactly what this was. It could have been a concoction of LSD or mushrooms or wine or any other things that we don't even know about that they had. But yeah, this was one of the examples, because also Demeter is one of the gods that's worshipped in these Eleusinian mysteries, and Demeter was a goddess of grain, I believe, and agriculture. So the actual goddess that they're worshiping in this secret ritual is the one that's in charge of grain, which is where you would end up finding this ergot growing, which, if you knew how to process it right, was, when I said an
think I'm on
underground
point with that Adam Weishaupt thing.
I mean, I feel that anyone that's writing about this is deep into this information, and Kinigi, or
Yeah, I was just keeping that. Yeah.
But Kinigi, Philo's entire inspiration for a lot of the different rituals that he was tasked with making, because Philo's the one that actually made the Bavarian Illuminati initiation rituals.
Shout out to Philo.
Shout out Philo. He was inspired by the Eleusinian mysteries more than anything else.
Oh,
so
really?
I definitely think that all of that would be intentional. If you see if you see anything referencing Demeter or Eleusinians, it came directly from his inspiration on that. I don't think Weishaupt cared a whole lot about the ritual and the circumstance. I think that he was in it for the power. He wanted to run it like he was a CEO or he was in charge of an intelligence network. And Philo was like, here's my chance to really create something in his mind, something beautiful for all these, high-level Freemasons and all these people high in society, to show them like all this cool esoteric ritual that I know. But that wasn't really what was paying the bills. What was paying the bills was the blackmail that Adam Weishaupt was getting everyone to turn in on everybody else.
And you get to learn all about this in the Illuminati comic. We go deep on stuff that you will never learn. So you get this comic and make sure to go to it. I got the link pinned right there in the comic, or just go to illuminaticomic.com and make sure to get notified, because we're going to teach you everything. You'll be an expert on the Illuminati. How Philo, not Adam Weishaupt, created the Illuminati pretty much. I wouldn't say he came up with the idea, but he definitely built it through his connections.
Well, here's a good point that I think is worth kind of spelling out a little bit. So Philo, he's important because the selling point of the Illuminati for a lot of people, it wasn't like, hey, let me get into this big blackmail network because it might be something someday. It was more that, imagine you've got everything. You've got the resources. You're some rich, French dude or Austrian or Bavarian in the late 1700s. You already got everything you could possibly want. You've traveled the world, everything. But someone tells you like, hey, by the way, I've got these ancient rituals that no one's ever seen before. It is like the most exclusive stuff that you can imagine from history. It's such a selling point. Like secret societies to rich people are such a selling point because they don't sell a product because the higher classes already got all the products. They're not selling a get rich quick scheme because they're already rich. So what they're selling is some sort of ancient knowledge that nobody else has. And if you've got the resources and the time, there's almost this concept of like, well, what do I have to lose if it turns out to not be right? But what if it is right? This is like the ultimate Pascal's wager. Like, I guess I'll spend some time and money trying to learn these ancient secrets of all history. And that's what Philo was an expert at. He knew how to make all of those big selling points. He was kind of, I wouldn't even say he was a PR guy, because that would almost imply that he knew he was just making a product to sell and swindle people. I think Philo's heart was 100% into these esoteric studies that he was into, and he was making these degrees that really did impress people and got them to recruit their friends in the Illuminati. If it was just Weishaupt at the top, at a certain point, people would be like, oh, this guy's kind of creepy. He just wants me to like report on everything that everyone's doing. Philo made the Illuminati an actual organization that people want to be a part of. And when he left, it was sort of the first big indication of that fizzling back out.
And you could tell by just his writings and his works how passionate and how disgruntled he was by the abuse of Adam Weishaupt.
Yeah, and yeah, shout out to Philo, bro, because without Philo's reply, which was translated into English, you can get that book that you're showing on the screen right now, but that this is the first-hand account of the guy that was the second in charge of the Bavarian Illuminati, talking about how it formed, his impressions of it, all of that. This is like the most incredible insight that we'll ever have of the Bavarian Illuminati. I don't think anything surpasses what Philo's reply has in it.
Absolutely. And I'm trying to find the book. I got it over here somewhere. Broke it down heavily, and we put it in this Illuminati comic. So make sure to go there. Let's try to get up to 500 subscribers to it. Let's see if anyone subscribed. Yeah, look, it's working. We got 3 people who subscribed to it. So good. Let's try to get that to 500. I'm going to play the commercial real quick, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Learn about the full history of the Bavarian Illuminati. Adam Weishaupt, Alumbrados, Jesuits, Rosicrucians, Freemasons, and more. From the 18th century to modern day, we expose it all. That's right, it's the Illuminati comic from Doenut and Paranoid American. Get yours now at illuminaticomic.com.
You know you want it.
You know you want it. You know you want it. Illuminati comic. So yeah, let me see what else I got in the news. I got a bunch of stuff. Okay, yeah. So this is kind of interesting. That Trump has been talking about vessels. Have you heard about this?
No, but Juan did hit me up to make an image for him earlier today with Trump inside of a vessel which implies like a homunculus aspect to it. So that's the only way that I've heard about him talking about vessels so far.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so I'm trying to find where where I put it. But
I
he was
wanted to note this too before you were talking about how like Trump like was sort of putting out this meme magic that the older generation doesn't understand, and I think that that's another example of how he's just a really good delegator. Like if you read any of his books, right, you get this impression that he's just kind of orchestra. He's like a orchestra conductor at a certain level. He's not getting his hands dirty. He's not picking up a hammer at any point, but he's building all these things. And I think you apply that same principle to his meme magic. He just knows the people that translate and that work in this space. He finds people that he trusts and just have at it. Like, here's the keys to the palace. Go make all the memes that you want. Because I doubt that Trump is sitting down and making all these different memes personally. So he's got he probably has like a legit meme department with people that are like trained in just memology that are working like 24/7 whipping things up. I think that's an incredible, and I don't think that any other candidate necessarily has anything at that level, because otherwise we'd see the results of it, but we haven't.
So he was calling Kamala a vessel. She's a vessel. She's a vessel. And he brings it up in multiple speeches lately, which I thought was interesting.
I mean, I feel like it's a decent point. I think that's also what makes, at least from the exoteric, like at surface, Trump does seem that he's his own man and that he doesn't necessarily represent a proxy to some other group. I'm not going to put my own impression on what I think behind that, but if you were to compare him to Biden or even Kamala, it almost seems implied that there's a proxy. Like you're voting for a thing that represents a bigger thing when you vote for that angle. When it comes to Trump, it sort of is intended to be sold as breaking that mold entirely. So by him saying she's a vessel, it implies that I'm not a vessel, right? It's like, hey, look at this weird thing. She's this thing that I'm clearly not. Otherwise, I wouldn't be pointing it out in such specific terms.
Yeah, it's that's wild. I got a bunch of just different slides of different things that I'm looking at, and we could talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Well, let's go, man. We're going to be doing this nightly, so I don't think we're going to run out of topics, especially if we're doing Illuminati news and we got elections and we got a comic coming out. So yeah, give me what you got.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I just have different things, different topics that I, just keep up there. And one that I think is interesting, and I find this one interesting about Kim Kardashian doubling down on the idea of eating poop to look younger, because you are an expert in the youth chemicals. You got to go to Paranoid Twitter. We can't talk about it here, but we're going to do an exclusive stream on this certain chemical that keeps the elites young, in a sense, like a vampire sort of. We're going to do a whole broadcast on that, but you got to go to Paranoid's Twitter. He got breakdowns on it, millions and millions of views. But Kim Kardashian doubling down on the idea of eating poo-poo to look younger is interesting, because this has been in the works for a long time. In Asia, they've been developing different poop particles that you can eat and turn the poop into meat. It's just something it's been in the news since 2010. And this bloodline, this Kardashian clan bloodline, that's connected to all the elites, like Kanye. Kanye sings songs about poop, poop-a-doop, boop, boop, poop-a-doop, scoop, scoop. And I feel like there's something going on with the Japanese scientist meets poop human feces. What's your thoughts on all this?
I think that this might be them showing us the alternative. If we don't want to eat bugs, guess what's right behind bugs? So it's like, okay, if these are my two options, let me see how those crickets taste that you guys have been pushing in the Great Reset. I feel that that's a big aspect of it, because it's not a huge selling point, right? If you're saying, hey, drop the burger, or even drop, the veggie falafel that you're chewing on, and eat a cricket or eat a cockroach, or use this sort of bug-based protein, it's not nearly as appealing as any other option out there. So you have to start presenting the options they don't want. You've been doing graphic design for basically a lifetime at this point, right? And
Yeah.
one of the like pro tips whenever you're doing something for a client, especially if it's like in creative endeavor, is that you'll have versions that you don't like, the ones that you don't want them to pick, just so that you can present those alongside the one that you really like, so you can kind of stack the deck a little bit, right? It's like here's and usually too, you won't show the best one that you got right out the gate. You'll show some like mediocre versions, or like some that are like 80 or 90% of the way there, and then maybe like the third one that you show somebody, that'll be the one that really hits hard, and you kind of like emphasize a little bit. So I kind of feel that that's what's happening here, is that they're going to offer a whole bunch of different options on sustenance, and then say, okay, which one do you want to choose? And just the very act of offering these options means that they're stacking the deck in a certain way.
Okay,
Speaking of eating poop,
yeah. Speaking of mind control and poop control, poop control.
a lot of this too is going to start coming out of space exploration news, because one of the biggest challenges, even if we were able to hit the speed of light or exceed it in order to go around the galaxy, right? The biggest thing is running out of food and water. So this honestly, like the space news and the space exploration angle is where a lot of this consuming your own fluids and materials in a way of almost like an infinite energy machine, but for food and water.
Of poop, the fountain of
Right.
youth. Like
I mean, that's kind of how it's going to be phrased if you're in space. And again, like space exploration is an interesting overlap here, because it's a way to take religion and take supernatural out of it, but still talk about the exact same concepts.
Yeah. So that's just an article I was looking at. And speaking of Kim Kardashian, like with the fecal matter, keeping her young, the albino alligator that she dressed up as, and the movie Albino Alligator. This is the AA, the Twin Peaks, like the Pine, like there's the show, the occult. Shout out to Jacob Israel. He did a whole broadcast on it, but I didn't know this was Kevin Spacey's like film. His like what made him famous, I guess. Like he made this film, Albino Alligator. Have you seen this?
Yeah, Matt Dillon, Faye Dunaway. It's been a while since I had seen this, but it's about basically like an underground black market arms trafficker.
Oh, okay. I've never seen it, but I thought that was weird. How they have the Illuminati card, and that's what she dresses up as.
I think that your connection that I've seen you posting on the Kardashian and the Cardassian from Star Trek
I've
being
been
almost
talking about
identical.
that forever, dude.
That one was
It went viral.
She had to have leaned into that. I feel that whenever that costume got put together, it was like, hey, look, here's a picture of an actual Cardassian. Now do this, but then like spin it in a way so I'm not in Star Trek.
It's definitely part of the alien agenda, right? The AA alien agenda. It's the ancient alien. It's the aliens, bro. They're just trying to get that into the mythos ever since I was a kid. Yeah, like X-Files and all that. So we're coming up on the elections tomorrow. I have a feeling nothing's gonna happen. Like, you know how people are all scared, like the Civil War, and everybody gonna freak out and it's gonna be over. I think it's gonna like nothing gonna happen at all, because usually it's like the opposite of I mean the tragic event already happened. Peanut was murdered. But November is Novum, it's 9. JFK, he was assassinated this month on November 22nd. These are just things. We don't have to talk about any of these things, but it is the season of the witch. I guess that's we're in. I don't know.
And we're even with tomorrow, we're probably not going to know until the day after at the earliest, because in 2016, when Trump first ran, we didn't know until I think it was 3:00 the day after the actual election was over. But we've seen how long it can take to tally all those votes. And again, if this is all about harvesting loose energy, this is the moment. Like, this is basically the Super Bowl for political loosh, especially with the media. I kind of go through this too. Being in Florida, we've got hurricane season every year, right? But sometimes it doesn't hit. This year was basically a field day. This was like 2 or 3 Super Bowls that the media got to have over and over again, within like the Weather Channel sort of market of the media, right? That was their time to shine. Everything they do leads up to these huge national disasters, and this is the exact same analogy, but applied to all the political newscasters. Like, this is the best time to harvest all the loosh they can. So I think that there's been this trend to kind of stretch it out longer and longer, because just an extra hour or two literally translates into millions or hundreds of millions of dollars of people refreshing and checking and giving their attention to all these sources, even if they already know what to say. Like, there's really no incentive other than being the first one to start calling.
Yeah, to keep them just everybody like, oh, what's going on, just so they could continue to stay.
Well, and this is like if you ever go fishing, right? You don't just immediately start reeling it in as soon as you feel a little nibble. Like, you feel a little nibble, you pull a little bit, you let it nibble again, you pull it. You know what I mean? Like, you're trying to work that hook in deeper and deeper so that once they're completely committed to the bait, now you got them and you can reel them in easily. It's the exact same analogy here.
So I'm looking at who's winning, and I have no idea. I'm stupid. I can't read any of this, but it looks like I have no idea. But we're not gonna know until
And none of it matters because these are just exit polls. And one of the things that I always keep in mind too is that exit polls, all they tell you are how the people voted that are in this small subset of people that would actually go and do an exit poll. Because I don't know about you, if I'm leaving like an election polling place and someone's like, hey kid, come here, tell me who you voted for, it's only a subset of society that's like, yeah, I'll take some extra time out of my day to tell you how I voted and also tell the truth. You could easily lie in these cases, but it's the same thing too when they used to do Nielsen ratings, which might be a little old for like an online audience, but the Nielsen ratings was that you would either have a Nielsen box on your TV that would actually connect before it went to your TV and would let the Nielsen company know exactly what shows you're watching at what time. This is how they would track stats. The other way they would track stats is they would just straight up call you. I don't know if you remember this, like your parents getting calls during dinner, and it's like, hey, can we take a quick survey? What shows are you watching? And blah, blah, blah. Like, what are your impressions on all these things? But all they're getting are the opinions of people that are willing to stop dinner and talk to a stranger for an hour instead of their family. So it's already sort of like an oddball subset of society that somehow dictates what these temperature checks are.
Oh, that's wild. Yeah, I don't even remember too much.
That's so old now. Like, Nielsen doesn't have to exist because every online service just tracks who's connected to it anyways. Like, you don't have to opt in anymore. It used to be a thing that it was non-invasive, and now like you can't even opt out.
What's your thoughts on Tucker Carlson getting back massages by demonic aliens?
I think it's Blue Beam CIA. Pretty sure Tucker Carlson even noted that he tried to join the CIA, but I guess he didn't get in. Which
his
is
dad
also...
was Mockingbird CIA, and he said,
yeah, so it's family. It would have been a generational thing, and usually when someone says they try to get in but they didn't, this is kind of a loose reference to something called like sheep dipping. That's more of like a military term where you get kicked out of the military, but you're really in. You actually got in deeper, but in order for you to keep sort of like a secret cover, you get removed so you can operate outside the confines of the normal military. I think that Tucker Carlson is sort of like a mainstream media version of sheep dipped.
Sheep dip. I never knew that term. They almost posted this at 322. Tucker Carlson widely claims abortion causes hurricanes. You can't participate in human sacrifice without consequences.
I mean, I'm on board with that
Yeah, I'm
one,
on board
man.
with it. I'm not, and I'm not saying that they ain't demons. I'm just saying this is a guy on the world stage. It's connected to this blue beam stuff, like you just said, for sure.
And I mean, this is the deepest tangent, so I'll be really light on this one. But yeah, I 100% believe that it's a modern form of mulk. That mulk practice that we were talking about, cremation to care. The only reason we do proxies now is because of not just the public outrage, but because when Rome basically saw to the end of the Phoenicians, they're the ones that brought down Carthage, and Carthage was the last bastion of this ancient, like Sumerian, Babylonian, Phoenician religion. But they didn't stamp the religion and the practices out. All they did was converted it from being in the public, because it's weird now, right? Like the Bohemian Grove and all these like ancient secret society rituals, they're in these secret societies and they feel like so removed and so conspiratorial. But in Carthage and in Phoenicia, these were mandated. Like you had to show up in the public square and take part in all of these rituals. They were not a cult; they were state endorsed.
And that's why I try to tell everybody that Twitter is the new public square where you go watch the guillotine executions.
Yeah, yeah, it's still proxy a little bit. It's still kind of, but also you be seeing some very illicit videos on Twitter. Like you'll actually see some real sacrifices happening. Even if you're just looking for pictures of squirrels, it'll be like, oh, that wasn't a squirrel, that was a person.
Yeah, and then you got these like Taylor Green saying that my Jewish people, control like weather and stuff, but like didn't the Native Americans also like do rain dances? So the symbol sex and the stars, this is what I'm looking at symbolically for the 47th problem, going back to Pythagoras and the 47th proposition of Euclid's.
Of Euclid, yeah. He was the one that wrote the original book where we get kind of like calculus from.
And this is super important. This is just for America. America is built on symbolism like this. The White House, the design of it, the design of Washington, D.C. Everything is little connected to the occult. Not a little, a lot of.
Based on, yeah, it wasn't like someone was like, hey, let's make this building and adorn it with some things. If there's a really great documentary called Riddles and Stone that goes in depth on all this, but it's basically how the very blueprints originally were being passed around by occultists. It's like, hey, should we put another star here, another owl here? Like they started with how do we create the most occult symbolism in the literal blueprints of this foundation of, you know, Washington, D.C., the thing that's going to represent this entire nation. So they put everything they had into it and then built around the occultism. It wasn't like tacked on or built into it. It started with occultism.
It started with occultism and continues. Like even Reagan, people don't understand how much of a occultist he was, him and his wife. They worked closely with Manly P. Hall too. Did you know about that?
I didn't know that there was a Reagan Manly P. Hall connection.
Oh yeah, big time.
I know that they had seances in the White House, and that Nancy Reagan was trying to summon, who was it? She was trying to summon like previous first ladies of the White House, and reportedly successfully talked to a couple of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of especially with Reagan and Manly P. Hall. What it was not when he was president, but when he was governor. When he was governor, and it kind of hinted. Oh, look right here. When touching such things, Reagan echoed the work and sometimes the phrasing of occult scholar Manly P. Hall. So they even wrote it in this article.
What year is this article from?
This article came out in 2014. Ronald Reagan and the occultists. which is interesting because there's a connection to Reagan and Trump. I don't know if you saw the new Reagan movie, but it was pretty much it was Trump, but it was Reagan. It was like the
Oh, not
same.
yet. No, I plan to actually watch that
It's good.
movie and then The Apprentice in like the same period because that new Apprentice Trump movie.
Oh, okay. Where he's having intercourse with like people in the movie, and then,
I didn't know that. I don't know about any of that. I just know that there's a movie about Trump called The Apprentice.
the lefties at the Cannes Film Festival gave it a standing round of applause because of the forceful penetration scenes in it. They love it, and this is because energetically they want daddy, Trump daddy, because it's the masculine and feminine. And I've been saying this since day one that the left loves Trump in an energetic way because the crowd of the left is very emotional and kind of like out there, and Trump is just a solid like rock on the stage. So it's this masculine and feminine polarity of attraction. That's what I think.
I can see that. I mean, this is like some people, they'll get like a toothache or a loose tooth or something, but they'll keep messing with the damn tooth. Like even though it hurts, they'll be like pushing on it with the tongue or just like biting down on it because that sense of pain, once you stop doing it, it releases, the endorphins essentially, and you can like turn it into this feedback loop. And yeah, that's kind of how I see this too, that you don't want someone that's just milquetoast or just neutral. They're using this to like constantly give themselves these extra little spikes. So yeah, it's a great observation. It's like they love the energy that it gives them, even if the source of that energy is ultimately something that they detest or it's something they want to eradicate. The same way that loose tooth or that sore tooth, like you want to get it fixed, but in the meantime, you're like, I'm gonna poke at this thing a little bit.
Yeah, and so like energy, there's the masculine and feminine polarities that like attract, and the masculine energy is a rock and is unmoved. And so what Donald Trump does, because I've read all of his books, his business books throughout the years, and what he talks about is that once people attack him, he allows them to attack and get all the rage out. And then once they're all done, once the left is done, like having a hissy fit,
And he puts them to nap.
he comes
He gives them
out.
a juice box and they take a nap.
Yeah, and when he comes back out and says like, "You'll be in jail" or whatever, So that's like the way. It's so like he is this masculine archetype of a mountain, and the feminine is more of the nature of the wind, of the storm, of the sunshine, energetically, not male and female. I'm talking energetically, like David Dieda's work on those polarities.
Well, that's a great analogy too, because look at what Trump, outside of politics and outside of like his Hollywood impression, but Trump is known for creating buildings. Not personally. Again, he's not breaking a sweat out there or like breaking any nails or anything, but he's actually creating physical large constructions and large buildings all over the country and the world. They're going to stand the test of time, and these are constantly things that are being hit up with waves and wind and all of these like temperamental aspects of nature, right? Like the the fleeting aspects, right? But Trump and the Trump Tower, for example, it kind of like stands through all of these different movements. And I think that there's like an analogy here where he is this builder. Like he's like a physical monument that has to stand up to this constant barrage of elements and wind that you're talking about.
Right. And it's also interesting because I've been really diving deep into Ayn Rand lately, covering the symbolism of socialism, of communism, and the socialists and whatnot, because there's a huge socialist movement in America, which changed from the left, the left wing, the right wing as well has a lot of these ideologies, And I've been studying the symbolism, and then I can see this ideology has crept in, which is pretty crazy, that Ayn Rand warned about. Ayn Rand has been warning about what was coming forever as she survived the Bolshevik Revolution, I believe. I'm not too smart. This is like something I don't know her history too well, but she talks about this guy, John, who is John Galt. Did I say that right?
Who is John Galt is the question, and the answer is essentially all of us are John Galt, but that John Galt is this like egregore, or like an amalgamation of all of the industry leaders. John Galt would be if you got Elon Musk in a room and Donald Trump in a room and Bill Gates and Steve Case and Steve Jobs. If you get all of these innovators in a room, that's John Galt. Like all of those people individually are John Galt, and collectively they're John Galt. And that her, I guess, and I'm way oversimplifying because this is the course of like the Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged all combined, which are fairly long books, but that John Galt represents this need to create solutions and be industrious, and essentially without John Galt's, you don't have any real movement or progress. You don't have any more technological breakthroughs. And that she was warning that if you keep leaning towards like the socialist aspect of this, then you eliminate any of the reason for any of those industry titans to exist in the first place, good or bad. Then you kind of remain stagnant. And that in Atlas Shrugged, it was almost as that John Galt, being this proxy for multiple people of industry, they all just sort of retreat from society. They all just go and move out to their own island and do what they want on their own, and the rest of society doesn't get the benefit from it. So by like engaging with socialism in the way that it's kind of getting pushed that we talk about, it removes any incentive for people that have the ability to make huge change to participate in that system.
And
that's at least her kind of theory of it.
Thank you, my Sherry, for sharing out the Patreon. Make sure to go subscribe to the Patreon. And I'm also going to check and see if we got any super chats. I don't think we did. But if you want to do a super chat, you could always scan the Venmo and send it in. I don't think we got any, though, which is okay. What's most important is people going to the IlluminatiComic.com and signing up for the notify me, because on 11/11 we're going to drop the Illuminati comic, and there's the movie The Fountainhead, to go back to what you were talking about. Thank you for breaking that down. The movie The Fountainhead has this incredible speech, and I want to see if I have it. I played in a lot of my videos on my Patreon.
And we were talking earlier too, and you said you saw the Atlas Shrugged trilogy. I highly recommend it. A lot of Ayn Rand gets a lot of hate as being like a hypocrite or being like too right wing or whatever. If you just remove all of that, legitimately the first Atlas Shrugged movie is great, and I actually liked it so much that I even enjoyed the second and third, although maybe cinematically they're not the best movies. Like you kind of have to chew through both of those a little bit.
Well, I'm listening to the audio book, and it's like a movie in my head listening to it, because it's these characters on the world stage that are similar to a Trump that build, that go capitalist building and stuff like this. And then there's these socialists that just don't want to do anything and just take and whatnot. And I can totally see that with the alt-right movement endorsing Kamala.
Well, just like I mean, not to get all like political and biased and stuff. I'm trying to speak from this from like an objective, observational point of view. I'm biased too, but I try to at least speak about it in somewhat objective terms. And I guess an analogy that comes up is that the pilot fish and the sharks, right? The little sucker fish that attach themselves to these sharks, and they don't get attacked. I mean, partly because they're too small, but it's a symbiotic relationship. Where both of them get something out of it. The pilot fish, they will remove algae and any sort of other things that are growing on the outside of the shark, keeping them clean, while the shark is going around and like taking care of business. You know what I mean? So there's like a symbiotic relationship aspect. But when Ayn Rand talks about this in Fountainhead and in Atlas Shrugged, it's sort of like the same silhouette where there's a sucker fish on a shark, but in these cases, like the shark's not getting anything out of it, right? The industrialists and the capitalists are getting absolutely nothing from this other entity that's sucking from them constantly.
Yeah, and you know what? At the end of the day, we don't have much control, but we do have to take action. You know, we got to show up and work, take action, and then leave the results up to God. And this is I'll play a little bit of. I don't know if I can though. I should be fine.
What year? What year is this?
I don't know. It's in black and white.
that might not matter.
Maybe if I play some music behind it.
Do what you do, man. Let's get some workarounds going. Is a copyright strike better than a content strike?
Yeah, let me see if I got a. I think we'll be fine. I think we'll be fine. I'll play a couple.
I'm not scared. If you're not scared,
I'm not scared.
1949. But we should be good.
Yeah, this is from the Fountainhead movie. Go watch the Fountainhead. It's really good.
Fire. Thousands of years ago, the first man discovered how to make fire. He was probably burned at the stake he had taught his brothers to light, but he left them a gift they had not conceived, and he lifted darkness off the earth. Throughout the centuries, there were men who took first steps down new roads, armed with nothing but their own vision. The great creators, the thinkers, the artists, the scientists, the inventors, stood alone against the men of their time. Every new thought was opposed, every new invention was denounced. But the men of unborrowed vision went ahead. They fought, they suffered, and they paid, but they won. No creator was prompted by a desire to please his brothers. His brothers hated the gift he offered. His truth was his only motive. His work was his only goal. His work, not those who used it. His creation, not the benefits others derived from it. The creation which gave form to his truth. He held his truth above.
I'm just going to pause it and continue it. I just don't want to get,
Yeah, good call.
From it. But this movie is the Fountainhead. It's part of the whole Ayn Rand, all the books, but this is one of the speeches. I'll play a little bit more of it, and because it starts getting really good around this part.
All things and against all men. He went ahead, whether others agreed with him or not, with his integrity as his only banner. He served
integrity.
Served
South
nothing.
Park, shout out.
Integrity. You got to have integrity.
Integrity Farms.
And no one.
Integrity.
He lived for himself. And only by living for himself was he able to achieve the things which are the glory of mankind. Such is the nature of achievement. Man cannot survive except through his mind. He comes on earth unarmed. His brain is his only weapon. But the mind is an attribute of the individual. There is no such thing as a collective brain. The man who thinks must think and act on his own. The reasoning mind cannot work under any form of compulsion. It cannot be subordinated to the needs, opinions, or wishes of others. It is not an object of sacrifice. The Creator stands on his own judgment. The parasite follows the opinions of others.
Oh, I think that was good right there. Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's a good speech. I watch it every year.
He's this is getting into some pretty deep philosophy territory too, but when he's saying that there is no collective brain, I think what they're referring to, and this is important too, that Ayn Rand contractually made sure that she had full control over this script. Like I believe that the director wasn't allowed to change any of the dialogue, which led to some critical reception on that. But that this is as close to what she had written in the Fountainhead as she could possibly make happen. But what he's describing is the actual people that make those innovations and those new creations work. But we've talked about there is a group mind, and it's called the crowd, and this is the Gustave Le Bon aspect. But that same part of the crowd means that that collective brain of the crowd, it's not really capable of creation. It's only capable of either destruction or dissipation or like transferring ideas across other individual brains. But once you get into that crowd, I guess anyone that's ever had to do a school project, a group project, right? It's like the one person that does all the work, and then everyone that just kind of like takes credit for it. I mean, in various degrees, right? But the bigger the group gets, the easier it is for certain people to kind of dissolve and disappear into the anonymity of having this large group. And I think that that's kind of what the Fountainhead was representing. It's like not letting people just kind of fade into the background and sort of coast by on the efforts of everyone else and then claim all the work for it.
And what I think that he was talking about too is that the group mind isn't an individual and doesn't think for itself. So you get this herd theory kind of going. It's not an individual. It's like the group, and that's what social media is. That's what Twitter is, and Facebook, and your wall. That is the collective, and the majority is usually wrong. So you get a majority of people being like, no, this is what it is. But through history, the majority seems to always be in the wrong.
Yeah. Well, and I think too that's because so much of what actually happens is not intuitive. Like the actual way that the world works on the micro and the macro level, it's so unintuitive to what we would expect to rationally be the course of action. That's why that all those logical fallacies that came up in like the old Seven liberal arts, and if you got into the skills of rhetoric and doing debates and all this, it's really not relevant now outside of politics, ironically, of knowing all these logical fallacies. And it's mostly because they work so damn well. That's why all these logical fallacies were kind of repeated and taught over and over again and have very specific versions of each one, is because there's almost an acknowledgement of how susceptible our human brains are to falling into compelling arguments that seem like they're rational, but if you remove yourself and analyze them, that they aren't. And you can only do that through these long list of tools that aren't taught anymore. This is I believe this is the original Trivium, and not to get all academic on here, but like the Trivium and Quadrivium.
Yeah,
the Trivium was what grammar, logic, and rhetoric, and they're in that particular order because first you got to learn what words are and what they mean, which is grammar. Then you got to apply logic to it. So now you okay, well, these words in this order and the context means that this is the information being conveyed. And that's where modern education stops. But the third step in the Trivium was rhetoric. And rhetoric was entirely about, okay, now that you know what the words mean, and now that you understand how logic is supposed to work, here's all of these pitfalls. Here's all of these weird traps that you can find yourself in and not realize it. So you better know what they are. Like examples of logical fallacies, like appeal to authority. This is when, 9 out of 10 doctors agree that this candy is the best one for your teeth. Like, it's like, oh, well, if 9 doctors, or if you see a commercial and a guy's wearing the white suit or he's got a stethoscope, it's like, oh, okay, I guess this guy knows what he's talking about. It's just an appeal to authority. If you were to close your eyes, or if you were to say, like, what, who gave them their credentials? What 10 dentists did you talk to? Now you're applying the actual rhetoric, and you're trying to break down any kind of logical fallacies that happen. But again, we don't learn any of that anymore. That's not taught in any schools unless you're either A, going into sales, B, going into media, or C, you're into politics. And in all of those instances, it's never about identifying fallacies and preventing them. It's about knowing what they are so you can employ them on people that don't know about them.
Yeah. And also in psychology, probably too, just like learning psychology, you probably will dive a little bit into that. I even got Ayn Rand. We were talking about her. She was banging this guy. She was married, and but they were cool with it. Like but she was banging the Nathaniel Brandon. And I got his book and I got his autograph up on here. And this is what I'm talking about. This was like $5. Like these
What book
are.
is that?
This is just a like a talk he did, kind of like a talk on breaking free. From the author of The Psychology of Self-Esteem. It's like a conversation he's having. I bought it though because he autographed it. It was $5. And this is the thing, is that the majority of people don't even know who Nathaniel Brandon is. You know what I mean? $5. If Britney Spears signed it, maybe not Britney Spears, but you know what I mean? Like one of these celebrities that is not really important, like Nathaniel Brandon, like $5. Come on. Like nobody wants it or even know who he is. It just shows you that the majority in the crowd is always wrong, or looking the wrong way. And we're coming up on that 2-hour mark. I want to remind everybody, we here with Paranoid American. Oh, I got some of your
Oh, you got the swag.
Paper. Yeah. We're here with Paranoid American, and what we are doing is dropping the Illuminati comic. This is going to be released on November 11th, 11/11. It is an incredible comic full of the whole history of the Illuminati, first off. So you're going to get wicked smart. We worked on it for over a year, so it's absolutely incredible. But you're going to get cool things like VHS box. We dropped into Doenut VHS box this year, only over there, which means that we could ship internationally now. So inside here is a bunch of goodies, stickers, and the comic. We're going to have a street team, Illuminati street team. So if you want to go and make your money back, you get like 10 comics and sell them or whatever at your smoke shop or wherever you work or your gas station, you put them there. You could be part of the street team. And we also got the Illuminati Yacht Club, which is top level. So you'll learn about all this stuff, but you got to go to IlluminatiComic.com and go to this Notify Me on launch. Let's get it over to 500. And why this is so important is, oh, look at that. Damn, we almost there. 463 now. Going to the Notify Me on launch, why it's so important is because when we launch this, it's your support. It's your support this channel exists. We're not, as you can see, you can't super chat me because we do this all crowd funded. And this is like a crowdfunding thing. And Paranoid American is putting it on, and he's done tons. He did one with Sam Tripoli. Sam Tripoli was just on Joe Rogan right before President Donald Trump was on Joe Rogan. The podcast right before this guy down here did his. Like, so
yeah, I like to say that Sam Tripoli is like the Kevin Bacon of the conspiracy world. Like now it's the Sam Tripoli degrees of connection, not the Kevin Bacon degrees of connection.
Yeah. But I mean, it's absolutely incredible. We did the research. I am so proud of this comic, and we're going to turn it into a freaking movie. But the reason why it's so important to go to this Notify Me is because you're going to get dope gifts early. Like we got a 5G donut necklace, like crazy shit like that, you know. So I got those links. Make sure to click that link and go subscribe to Paranoid American's YouTube channel as well. I mean, as you can tell, the dude is brilliant genius.
We've blown up over here, but I think you buried the lead a little bit on there too. You mentioned it, but this is the first time that you're going to get one of these VHS box internationally. And I've learned especially over the last 2 or 3 years of doing comic fulfillment, but I've got it down to a science now. So I don't care what country you live in. You can be in Botswana. We'll get these to you, with tracking, everything. Like it'll arrive perfectly. In fact, I've been completely surprised at how many people we get that are buying from Australia, that are buying from Germany, the Netherlands, everywhere. Like we've shipped comics to almost every single country at this point.
Yeah, and I'm excited because that's one of the things is that a lot of people in Australia, other people in other countries, they couldn't get the Doenut VHS box, and we're going to drop it. We're going to have t-shirts. We're going to have just like a bunch of cool stuff, stretch goals and all that. It's going to be fun. So go sign up, and we dropping it on 11/11. So just for this, we're going to be streaming every single night. We're going to be bringing on guests. We're going to just be going. We're going to go wild with it. We're going to go wild with it. Yeah. So if you got a suggestion, put your comments down below. Share the video, like the video. Anything else should we talk about before we wrap it up?
I mean, good luck, man. Keep yourselves educated and protected because, again, we're in the middle of the biggest loosh farm storm ever. This is like a Category 6 loosh hurricane that we're about to head into. So I almost feel like tomorrow night we should have like the Weather Channel with like umbrellas and like wind machines going, like reporting from the eye of the storm.
Hey, it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. Everything is going to just let go and let God. You know,
That's the ultimate conspiracy of all, that everything's going to be okay, because that one's the hardest to believe for most people.
Hey, look where we are. Are we okay right now? Everything's fine. All the stuff that we worried about to this exact moment of you tuning in, you're okay. And everything's going to be fine. So smash that like button. We here with Paranoid American. Go subscribe to the IlluminatiComic.com. Go to my Patreon. I'm going to be dropping videos and interviews over there as well. Go subscribe to Paranoid American. Paranoid, anything else?
IlluminatiComic.com it's not just a comic book. It's literally going to make you an expert on into water cooler talk, or even like that deep Reddit or Twitter thread where everyone's like, oh, it never existed. Or one of the ones where I started too, it's like, oh, that's silly, a hip hop Illuminati, Justin Bieber and the Illuminati. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Well, guess what? The Illuminati's been funding child pop stars since their inception, and we've got all the receipts and the names and the dates. Not only we're going to talk about on stream, but they're all in the comic. Like every single thing that we mention in the comic that sounds crazy and out there is going to be like, and here's where it came from, and here's the date, and here's where you can look it up yourself. So I think this is going to be one of the more important conspiracy-related comics that's ever been put out, not just by me, but by anyone, period, because it's not from a silly standpoint. It'll be entertaining, but it's going to make you a damn expert in the Illuminati, guaranteed.
First time ever done, too. It's going to be dope, and it's amazing. And then we're going to turn it into a movie with y'all support. So smash that like button, share the video out. We'll see y'all tomorrow, same time. We're going to be streaming at the same time all month long. Much love, and God bless you.